right, welcome to the Prospect Podcast. We're excited to get into it today on a Thursday. As always, I have Coach Schumann. I have Coach D to my left. Above us is our guest, Eric Dagati. We're excited to talk to him with Fitometry, um, among other things, obviously, that he does. So we're excited to dive into everything performance and fitness related and strength conditioning related. So I'm going to dive into it. Eric's been working with athletes for the last 20 some odd years, really helping them develop in the athletic performance space. And he really does a fantastic job and based out of North Jersey of really like kind of approaching it to the whole athlete. So really trying from a holistic standpoint, really developing the whole entire athlete. And he not just trains athletes, but he's developed a bunch of programming as well that athletes can access online and families can access online to be able to help them continue to improve, on their athletic journey. So it's really great to have Eric on to dive into some of these things and it's one of the big themes we have obviously on the Prospect Podcast, performance. Um, and it's always exciting to talk and hear all the different methodologies, some similar, some different in developing athletes. And Eric is one of the guys that have really established himself as one of the top guys in this space. So welcome to the Prospect Podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, so I briefly dove into it. I gave the high level 60-second version. I would love for you to kind of take time and just dive into your own journey and how you got into this space, and then kind of what you've done over the last 20 some odd years and the evolution of maybe even some of the things that you've done over time.
Sure. I'll try to not take up the whole show explaining 27 years of doing this. Every time I do something like
We've
this, I
had
talk
it.
about it. Coach D, and I were just talking about a team that he had worked with, that I'd worked with going back almost 20 years ago. So started out, getting into training and eventually open up my own facility. A lot of that was open for 12 years in Montville, New Jersey, called One Human Performance. We had, a conglomeration. I had this vision, kind of the name of One was, I had this vision of everything being under one roof and having a multidisciplinary center where we had physical therapy, we had chiropractic care, we had nutrition, we had athletic performance, and all of this under one roof. Now that sounds commonplace, but 25 years ago, people thought it was nuts. And so that didn't exist. So trying to convince people, yeah, this is a cool idea was not an easy thing to do. And then, my own personal clientele happened to gravitate towards performance. I was doing some different things that a lot of the other performance coaches weren't doing. I kind of got labeled as like this flexibility, like corrective movement nerd, like kind of guy. And it wasn't like that. That's all I did. We had, strongman stuff, and we were lifting heavy weights and doing all that stuff too. It was just, we did this other stuff first. And it was just like checking the boxes of like, before you really lift that really heavy thing, like maybe you should be able to touch your toes first. Like that was pretty much it. But then people focused on that part, right? Because that was something that they weren't doing. So that evolved to where, started consulting with a bunch of different high school teams, college teams, got the good fortune to get the opportunity to start working with the Giants back in 2007. Was there. I always joke when we were actually good for 9 years. So it's 2 Super Bowls, awesome run. And then all that time, the other thing I completely got into is fitness education and really developing and mentoring and educating and doing workshops and seminars and speaking at conferences for coaches and trainers and clinicians, and still do that to this day as a big part of what I do.
That's phenomenal. So talk about, so from the time you started to now, what are some of the things that like you had firm beliefs on, and then are the things that you continue to evolve over time? And from that standpoint, talk a little bit about that.
So that can go a lot of different directions, Coach. So you want to talk more about
Wherever you want,
nuts and bolts stuff, or philosophical stuff? Because I can go either direction.
Go both. Tackle one at a time.
All right, so let's nerd out in nuts and bolts stuff. So this is the probably one of the biggest mistakes in not understanding is that I was in a field called strength and conditioning, and I was really good at the strength part, and quite frankly, I was pretty shitty at the conditioning part because I thought everything had to mimic whatever you were conditioning for, because that was kind of the concept that was out there, and not really understanding energy system development and how conditioning actually works. And that's probably the thing that I've spent the most time understanding better over the last 10, 15 years is really understanding that, because it's so misunderstood. And then having to get that information and then translate that to coaches and get them to understand that. And how do you recognize that? And how do you know when you're quote unquote in shape? For this audience to appreciate it, like being on the sidelines on a Friday night and literally getting into it with one of our coaches because he said, kid gets burned and he's like, oh, we're out of shape. And I'm like, okay, first of all, that kid got burned because he stinks and he doesn't know where to stand or where he should be. That has nothing to do with conditioning, number one. Number two is watch when our kids come over during timeout with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. When they all have their helmets on and their mouthpieces in and they're not gasping for air, we're in shape. Right? If they come over pulling their helmets off and they're gasping, gulping for air, then come to me because then we're out of shape. So like we blame a lot of things of thinking of not being in shape and not understanding conditions. And then when we are quote unquote out of shape, we think we fix it with gassers. And that's not exactly how it works either. So that's probably the biggest change in terms of understanding and I think we're dreadfully behind as a profession on the conditioning part of strength.
There's no doubt.
So that's probably on that side of things. On a philosophical side, kind of being able to better understand, you put it really well, Coach, understand the athlete from a better perspective, because I was in it as a dad. I had two boys that played sports up until college, and you kept wrapped in it and you don't kind of step back and say, like, this kid is still a kid, right? He's still 15 years old, and I don't want to rob him of that experience of being 15 years old because I need to get his 40 time down. Like, at the end of the day, it may not friggin' matter, but if I can get this kid to maybe believe in himself a little bit more, maybe get this kid to be able to do something he didn't think he was capable of doing, and that translates to something down the road. Yeah, great if he gets a state championship or wins gets all county or whatever it may be. But it's what is that going to translate into, and being able to have better perspective on that looking back, and not being so engrossed in the moment of, oh, I got this guy and he's supposed to be the number one kid in the state, and I got to get this kid and I'm going to shave a couple seconds off his 40, or I got his bench up 25 pounds. And it's like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, a lot of that stuff didn't matter. Whereas when I have kids that come back to me that I coached 20 years ago and give me a hug in a store, that friggin' matters.
Yeah.
Right. I think that makes a big difference. We talk about conditioning a lot and speed development a lot, and the gassers thing. It really it 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 doesn't still resonate with coaches till this day that gassers do not make you a better athlete or a faster athlete, and that's really just more of you feeling good about the fact that you worked them. Now, I'm not going to say that maybe in some way it doesn't build some sort of I don't know, small bit of mental that I pushed myself thing, that maybe there's something there a little bit. But as far as actual physical performance and the impact on the game, like um I don't think I think it really has a probably a negative detrimental aspect where they can get injured for some athletes. And the athletes that you think are going to run the gassers fast before you ever started running the gassers is exactly who's going to run the gassers fast. So I never really kind of uh, I not that I didn't do them back in the day. I did them like anybody else as far as coaching wise. But you learn over time that stuff that really you're better off developing speed, front loading it at the early part of the workout, and getting that done, which will impact them a lot better than when they're tired. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your thoughts from that standpoint, because it's it's funny because no matter how much stuff is out there, it's like the only people that consume that content is like me, you, Derek, and everybody else who you already think who already knows that it's not the right thing. We can't. It's hard to get people to consume that content who need it. You know what I mean? So talk a little bit about it.
Well, there's a lot of different directions. The first is the misconception of it building mental toughness. There's a lot smarter ways that we can make
No
people
doubt.
more resilient than
Yep.
making them tired. Because it's first of all, it's like is that I don't know anybody kid who's been on the mound in the seventh inning with bases loaded and says, you know what, I'm going to get through this because I was able to run those gassers till I puked.
No doubt.
Um, there is something to being comfortable being uncomfortable, to deal with CO2 tolerance and to be able to get through those uncomfortable physical moments. Yes, there is, but there's much smarter ways to do that. And assuming you're going to do that by just making you super tired, is one thing. And then like mental toughness, like there's people with bullets flying over their head right now wherever they live. There's people who are fighting cancer. There's somebody working 3 jobs because they got to support their family. That's mental toughness. Being able to run gassers until you're tired, and then mom's going to pick you up in an air-conditioned Range Rover with a Jersey Mike sub waiting for you is
Yep.
not going to give you mental toughness. Like showing up every day and doing your job is mental toughness. Like I know I need kids I can count on, athletes I can count on that I know are going to be there, not somebody who half-asses through a bunch of gassers, and then when it's the last one, the guy who's the let's go boys, that guy, like who half-assed it for every sprint, and then the last one he's going to rah everybody,
Right.
like you know what I mean? Like okay, and like you said, coach, you know who that guy is anyway. You know who
Every
your
time.
dogs are. It's like when you do a conditioning test in the beginning of the season, what are you proving? Right. So if my son had to run a mile test for his varsity season in baseball, you know how many times around the bases a mile is? And so my question would be, all right, so let's say you got a kid who hits absolute bombs. He's the best player in your team, and he throws up a quarter mile in and doesn't even finish the test. Are you going to bench him?
Right.
Or you got a kid who runs the fastest mile in the history of the school, but he can't throw, can't catch, can't run. Are you going to play him? So what was your point? Right. So what did you do other than waste valuable practice time running? So there's a lot of different ways you could cook it. And if you don't understand, the whole essence of what I do is understanding how to create physiological and physiological adaptations. And if you don't understand what creates those adaptations, you can't dose them properly. You can't pick them properly. Like understanding what happens that, and you do a squat 1 time, 5 times, 10 times, 50 times, it creates a different result. The squat doesn't create the result. Knowing how you dose it, how you're programming it, the tempo, the reps, the rest, all that stuff is what, if you don't know those variables, then you're just guessing. And so that's unfortunately what we do is we're too lazy to go beyond the soundbite and actually understand what's going to create the desired effect that I want.
Right. And I think it's a shame, right? Because especially in today's day and age, right, coach, where you have access to so much information and you can go so easily. I mean, this is probably the easiest time period to go and find out this information without having to really do much to go find out and get it. And yet at the same time, the programming and the setup and the approach to all of it, it's still so quote old school or just not kind of with the times. My question is, do you think that the reasoning for that is because one, like, because we talk about this all the time, like you coach the way you were coached, right? So a lot of those guys, it was militant, it was disciplined, it was kind of just like, hey, it's this way, it's that way, you're doing it because I said so. Do you think that coaches now just are so accustomed and set in their ways that they're not willing to kind of change some things or tweak some things? They're just going to go about it the same way they always have?
I think there's definitely certain an element, and then there's always a fear of the unknown. Of okay, what if I try this new thing and it doesn't work? Right? At least I knew what I was getting with the old thing. So
Right.
you know what I mean. So there's the fear of the unknown is there, and then getting to understand that like either I used to tell coaches like it either matters or it doesn't. Like if it mattered so much that you're chasing kids down in the hallway in the end of December and yelling at them because they didn't show up for a lift for a sport you're not going to play for another 9 months. But then when season comes and you tell me we have no time to lift, well, which one is it? Does it really matter or does it not matter? Because if it really mattered, it should matter now when we're actually going to play the sport we've been training for. If the kid missed the workout in December because he had a basketball game, like leave him alone. You know what I mean? So and then don't tell me in September you have no time to train, which is the most idiotic thing. And that was the biggest struggle and fight in talking about changing minds is every team I consulted with is to say, do you understand how this works, right? You challenge your body. Your body then says, oh my gosh, whatever you just did, I'm going to have to now get stronger or more resilient or more powerful or faster. Guess what happens when you stop doing that thing? Your body says, oh, I guess I don't need that anymore. So you spent the last 8 months doing that. And now when you need it most, you are gradually getting slower and weaker and less resilient as you get closer and closer to the most important games of your season.
No doubt about it. What have you seen as far as like in your practice, like some of the things that you thought to yourself, these were great ideas back, 20 years ago, and then now you say, okay, you know what, this is a better way of doing things. Is there anything from that standpoint?
In terms of structuring, and understanding
Programming.
From a programming standpoint, understanding like it's something that's completely not talked about enough is like motor learning. Like how do we actually acquire skill and what is the environment to set up to do that and how you acquire different skills during is different, depending on what the outcome you're looking for. So like, as an example, to acquire skill is a speed. So if I want to, or speed is a skill, I should say. So if I want to acquire that, I don't do that well when I'm tired. So I'll ask someone to say, okay, ask an athlete when I'm looking at their programming, say, okay, do you sprint in your practices? Yes. Okay. Do you get super tired when you do it? Oh yeah, we're gassed. Okay. So then you're not doing speed work. That's conditioning. There's something different. Sprint work, you should feel like you could have done a lot more and you are not tired from it. You can't get explosive and fast and tired at the same time. So what does that mean? That means that stuff has to be front loaded in the beginning, right? That means you don't dose heavy reps and a lot of volume for that type of stuff. So that type of understanding of that in terms of motor learning to say, okay, well, kid makes a mistake on a play. Everybody run a lap. All right. Well, he made a mental lapse. Okay. He made a mental lapse because maybe he's fatigued because he was in school all day and he had an Uncrustable for lunch and he hasn't had anything else all day. Now he can't focus. So let's make him run and deplete him a little bit more. So now he's less focused and so now when you yell at him and say, this is what he's supposed to do, he can't process that cognitively and understand it to where he's actually be able to apply it. So understanding motor learning and understanding things like they're really nerd out, like block practice versus random practice. Right. And understanding what that is. Block practice for people that don't know. Block practice. All right. A perfect example, because this is where a lot of research came from. Block practice. If you want to practice your free throws, you shoot 100 free throws from the free throw line. Right. Random practice, and what they show will actually have a better effect long term on your performance at the free throw line, is instead of just shooting from the free throw line, you shoot from 2 feet in front of it, 2 feet behind it, 1 foot in front of it, 1 foot behind it, 3 feet in front of it, 1 foot behind it. And you mix that up. So your brain has to learn how to have touch and how to have feel. And so when you actually get to the line, you're actually better at that. And so learning how to dose that properly, learning how what are the skills that you're actually looking for? Learning the skill of being reactive. You know what one of my best conditioning drills was? Kids loved it. Playing tag was the best conditioning drill I could do. And the kids loved it because you tell kids, all right, line up, gassers.
Miserable.
Every head goes down. Everybody's like, why am I doing this? Whereas if you box them off, we box off. So like football is an example we keep using. So box off a smaller box for the lineman, a moderate box for your backs and linebackers, a bigger box for your outside skill guys. And then you say, I'm going to run a clock I'm going to pick 2 people that are chasers. And I assign the skill coaches to help out 2 kids that are chasers. Then I'm going to run this for 10 seconds. You got to catch as many kids as you can. You learn to dodge, react, decelerate, accelerate, how to track, how to take angles, all of that. And it's fun. You don't feel like you're conditioning.
Yep.
But you are. And you're also acquiring a lot of skills that are going to translate to the field way more than running half speed in a straight line.
No doubt about it. And I think that's one of the things that fundamentally is when people are like the athleticism of kids, when they're in such structured stuff right away, 25 years ago, they played tag, you know what I mean? So it's not something that's as often used. And so now if you do it in, like, for example, training, it becomes an acquired skill versus an kind of an innate skill that a lot of kids had from playing as kids back in the day. And I think that a lot of it's I'm curious your thoughts on this, like the general physical preparation. We talked a little bit about this yesterday with our guest, um, which used to fall in physical education departments, you know what I'm saying, back in the day. And then maybe just, you know, even generally, maybe even at home, right? Or with, um, uh, that's gone away in physical education departments tremendously throughout the country. Um, and a lot of the stuff that comes in with when you go to a trainer, like a lot of that, at least with younger kids, is literally general physical preparation, right? A part that may have been done differently back in the day, you're essentially becoming a part of the physical education department too, not just performance, but almost that physical education. I'm curious your thoughts on that. Am I on track to an extent with that?
1,000%. There's actually 2 points. One goes back to something Coach D was saying earlier, is like, in terms of one of the other challenges that the quote unquote old school coaches. I'm not against old school. I am old school and I'm old.
Right.
But
So
like,
so am I,
with
right?
that,
Like
but with
it is
that
what it
is
is.
like, is that you don't understand that, oh, when they'll say, oh, kids are different. They're not necessarily
They're not.
different so much, but here's where they are different. Physically, they are different. And I saw the biggest shift post COVID.
Yes.
Is that the physicality of our kids. Like when I would track weight room numbers and I looked at my weight room numbers pre versus post COVID, what used to be an average to below average strength level for a kid was like top of class as I got post COVID. You didn't see as much of that because you really, you took kids and you took away 3 years of huge physical development and plopped them in couches and locked them inside. And so that understanding physically, they're not the same resilient, organisms that you dealt with 10, 15 years ago. In terms of that skill acquisition, the challenge that we have, and we have to be very careful of that, as strength coaches, as sport coaches, or now everybody has their own skill coaches that are teaching them, from there's going to specialized lineman coach or receiver coach or hitting coach or pitching coach, and everything has to be perfect mechanically, right? And they never learn how to make mistakes, and they also never learn how to have a physical endeavor or athletic endeavor without having an adult watching and supervising and criticizing. And so having, and so I had on my podcast, we had a great lacrosse coach, and he said one of his most productive things that he changed in his practices is he would have one day a week where he would have a no adult allowed scrimmage where kids just had to figure it out. And
Right.
they had to learn. And they said it was, if you looked at the kids' faces during those, like, you hide in the trees and watch it, it's a completely different thing. Kids, they're so worried about mom and dad from the sideline and the coach and the skill coach and the trainer. Everybody get your elbow in, get your arm up, get your feet
Right.
here. And they never learn that we learn from mistakes and, from a motor learning standpoint. And so letting kids have the ability to have that freedom to make those mistakes is, I think, what makes them less athletic, makes them less resilient.
And coach, and I think today too, as well, with so many coaches are just so enamored with, what I mean? Like everything has to be perfect. It has to be this, it has to be that, right? Like to allow those mistakes, or they just want to be in control of everything or micromanage every little aspect of everything. These kids have been prodded and put into the spotlight. And you know what I mean? Like there's just almost a crazy level of feedback that they get, especially with the way it is now with social media, where, everything is out there, everything can be watched, or there's a picture of it, or, you know what I mean? They're kind of always in that spotlight. Whereas, back in the day, you didn't have that, right? And you had a couple days to figure out how to get, out of trouble, because it wasn't immediate that someone saw it on a camera or someone had a live feed going. And I think, you said it, the mistakes allow you to now go and correct and make it better, right? But if they don't learn how to fail, we've created a society where, like, failing is the ultimate bad thing. And at the younger ages, you almost want them to fail so that they can learn from it, so it doesn't happen on a bigger level of when they do fail in life at some point. Because growing up, you're in this protective bubble of school or this or that, so that even when you get in trouble, you're not really getting in trouble like you do when you're graduated and now you're out in the real world and trouble comes, and now there are real deal consequences. Not to say that some things can't happen when you're younger, but you're still in that protective bubble. And as coaches, allowing them to make those mistakes, allowing them to take some accountability for themselves, right? Because look, I'm at the high school level still, and I still have kids that mommy and daddy are doing literally everything for them. And now you want to go to the next level. Well, that freshman year of college, buddy, like, you're doing your laundry, you're waking up without mom and dad telling you when to wake up. So there has to be a healthy level where you kind of cut the cord a little bit and allow them to go and do things on their own, which now gives them, oh, I'm responsible for this. I have to learn how to do this, something so simple as, like, when we got, like, if our guys are going to miss, like, the email needs to come from them, or the text needs to come from them, not mom or dad when you're a junior in high school saying, oh, well, I'm not going to be there. It should be from, you got to grow up and you got to kind of understand some of those things. Allowing the kids to take accountability, I think, adds to their level of understanding. And now they're more bought in because they feel like they're a part of it a little bit more.
Yeah, the toxicity we have around youth in high school sports is just awful. I mean, they're scared to fail, and parents are scared to let them fail because we're ranking 10-year-olds, right? So it's like
even younger in some sports.
When I coached, I coached middle school football, and talking to a parent and saying, well, is your son going to play this year, right? Well, no, he has to play fall baseball. I said, well, I thought he loved football. He goes, yeah, but if he doesn't do that, he won't make the spring team. And then he's got to try out for this. And it's like, well, no, if you show up with a check to your travel team, they're going to take it. They're going to take it, right? They're going to just put you on team white instead of team gold, right? So this whole fear of missing out thing that gets created.
You're going to be on the elite team or this team. Yeah.
So that's what the parents get sucked into, and that's what the kid gets sucked into, because it's, oh, Johnny's ranked number 48 in the country as a 10-year-old. And it's like, Tom House, who's considered one of the greatest pitching coaches of all time, works with he worked with Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and everything on the football side. He said, anything you do athletically before 12 years old doesn't matter. So like, the more parents could understand that, and more coaches could understand that, like the plastic trophy you won from your spring bash 2 tournament in, March of your 11-year-old baseball year makes no difference. But something I want to go back to that Coach Truman, you said, is that people that don't understand, like, the whole concept of GPP versus SPP. That's the other thing too, is that we try to train kids like many adults. Like, the kid who can't even touch his toes or do a push-up doesn't need to be doing Paul Skeen's water ball pregame routine, right? As a 15-year-old, as a 14-year-old pitcher. Right.
Very good point.
So that, like, understanding there's a checklist that you should go through. Like we have, like, in my continuing education stuff, we actually created for that reason. And it actually stems from a conversation I had at a high school strength coaches conference. I was talking to a guy, and, after I had spoken, and he said, I just took the job as a strength coach at my high school because, I go in there and I see what some of these coaches are doing with their players, and I'm scared somebody's going to get hurt. And I turned to him, I said, you know what we really could use in sports, or really in training, is we need a belt system. Martial arts has a belt system. Like, you don't get to show up day one and spar with the black belts. And he's like, wow, that's a great idea. So then I went back. I'm like, all right, yeah, that is a good idea. I'm gonna run with that.
Yeah.
And so we created an exercise coach course where we basically took the 9 fundamental patterns that we do: push, pull, carry, lunge, squat, bend, that sort of stuff. And then we created a ranking system, a belt system, where it's if you can't at least do this, don't do this. And if you can at least do this, you should probably doing this instead until you can do this, and let's give you some objective markers to follow through on. Right. And so a simple example is like, okay, coach programs chin ups or pull ups for their workout. Right. So what do you got? You got the 140-pound defensive back who can do 50 pull-ups with his backpack on and his school clothes on. And then you got the 250-pound lineman who can barely hang from the bar. And you're telling them all do three sets of 10. Like, you're setting each one of them up for failure. Neither of them are getting anything out of it. So knowing how to scale and understanding that you should at least have some general, markers before you need specialized things. You don't need specialized parachutes or everything on your speed side. You don't need, to have weight releasers and chains and all the other stuff. All that stuff is phenomenal, but you kind of got to earn the right to use those things if you can't even do simple, fundamental things. And sometimes, and those simple fundamental things don't necessarily have to go away either. And that's the thing. And you've talked about social media, is that nobody's going to click on 50 minutes of a session that I do with a pro athlete because it's insanely boring to watch. Yep. Right. It's if I post something, I'm going to post the most exciting 2 minutes of the session that's going to get somebody to stop their scroll. But you didn't see the other 55 minutes that got to there. It's not 60 minutes of magic tricks and circus tricks.
There's no doubt about it. I think that when you look at the development of athletes and the things that have an impact, the key is at the younger ages is foundational development, right? Like, foundational development is so important. Skill development is important. Performance, do they learn how to compete, deal with adversity? Those kind of things I think are important. The end result, you know is where we get lost at youth sports. So most parents, and I say most because I see it all the time, um they're worried about the end result before the other stuff. You know what I mean? So the end res the end result is just a product of all the stuff that you're doing foundationally. Um and the truth is, the end result at youth sports, and even in high school, to some extent, is a product of who you're playing against, what level that athletically group is, you know what I mean, at that point. And the whole key is, are you progressing as a team, or if it's an individual sport, individually, or sometimes within a team, individually within the team, and how you're progressing from that standpoint, and what your improvements are, and your overall demeanor and how you handle things. And those kind of things are critically important, because if perchance you do become an athlete that could be really something, right? That's where those foundational elements are coming. But if you put the cart before the horse, where it's like, okay, uh, we win and that's then you get a whole situation where they don't they don't know how to handle things. When they lose, kids start to give up. Like, they're like, "Oh, I stink." Like, no, everything's a process. Like, you know, you won some fictional championship last week. Maybe the team you played against wasn't really that great. You know what I mean? Maybe you were a better level. And maybe the next week you played against a team athletically that's way ahead of you. It has zero to do with your overall development. You know what I mean? It's just that's just a result, which has the key is, are the indicators of overall getting better. Do you have those along the way to be able to measure what your improvements are in various areas, because ultimately that will be what's the difference in are you, becoming the best you can when puberty sets in and all the opportunities are to develop from that standpoint. Because I see so many times, not just from who's better at this point, but just overall development. Everything in athletics is biological age until everybody hits puberty, like fully hitting puberty. I mean, like where everybody's at a kind of more equal stage as far as from a development standpoint. But everything is biological, is what their biological age is. An 11-year-old might have started, and girls, you see it all the time. And girls, you see it all the time. 11-year-old girl, it may have
Well, they
hit
hit it
puberty.
sooner, right?
Yeah, and she may never if she's not focused on improving and developing all the things, and sometimes that super fast growth, they end up having certain like physical problems down the line, even if they're very good early on, maybe wear and tear or whatever. Because their biological age as far as physically was ahead, and all of a sudden you start, training them like they're 20-year-olds. You know what I mean? Just because they're physically mature, but they have not really gotten there as far as their structure. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, because it's one of the things people get so upset when I talk about biological age. They get so mad about it because they want to focus on this kid's really good versus this kid. You know what I'm saying? For instead of like, okay, for his biological age, he's at a good spot. He's developing based off of what his level of maturity is. It is not versus another individual. It's what your level of maturity is, what your stage is. Talk a little bit about that. If I'm on base, I'm off base. I don't know. Go ahead.
No, okay. There's a couple things. One is when you talk about
Sure.
biological age, is understanding, even little things like age cutoffs. So there was
Yep.
if you read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, there's an interesting story of a professor. It talks about
Great book.
he's at a hockey game. He's not really interested, so he's reading the programs, and he notices that all the players are born in the first few months of the year. They're all
Yep.
born January, February, March. So he went and studied it and realized there was a huge, incredibly high percentage concentration of NHL players that are born in the first few months of the year, especially Canadian born. Why? Because the age cutoff for hockey is January 1st. So I'm born on January 2nd, and you're still on my 14U, but you're born December 28th. I am a full year older than you.
Yep.
Now, what ends up happening is then I'm more physically mature, and then there can be up to a 2 to 3 year swing in terms of physical development for the same
Correct.
biological age. So let's say if this is a faster developer, now he could be almost 3 years ahead of someone else's in his same age group. Now, what is going to happen? He's going to get more recognition. He's going to get put on the better teams. He gets put on the better teams. He gets better coaching. There's higher expectations. There's all those things that other kid that gets left in the dust, who in the long run, the research shows usually ends up being the better player if you can stick with it. Now that leads to my next point. In coaching, what we ultimately need is like what doctors have a Hippocratic oath of do no harm. We need to have a 2-part thing. Don't hurt them and don't make them quit. Don't screw them up. Don't make them quit. Like, don't make them quit is the biggest thing. The best compliment as from the skill side that I ever got as a coach is I got a text from a friend of mine that I coach with in youth level. I coach his son from basically first grade up until high school. And he sent me a picture of our 4th grade team that won the Super Bowl. And he said, you realize every single one of these kids is still playing football today. Now, if I had that impact where I just said, don't quit, it made them love the sport and didn't make them hate it, that's the greatest thing I ever did. Way better than whatever trophy we won. Don't screw them up is, and what you were talking about, Coach Truman, is a story that when it happened early in my career that was incredibly impactful to realize that we need to be sometimes the adult in the room as the coach or trainer. Guy comes to me and he's one of these psycho dads for baseball. He's got his kid on like 4 teams. He's the guy who's calling his own pitches from the fence. He's
Right.
Out of control. And he's like, I want my kid, I want him to, I need him to be explosive. I want an explosive. So I'm like, all right, let me put him through his assessment first. And when I tell you, couldn't do a push-up, a kid just like laid him on the floor. Said, all right, give me a push-up. And he just lay there like a clam, like nothing happened. And so now I said, all right, so here's where we're going to start. Let's start working on giving you some shoulder stability, some core stability, some creating some connection between between your body. And we're first session in, he's like, this isn't what I want. I want explosiveness, because he's watching YouTube, he's watching ESPN, and he wants chains and sleds and jumping on boxes and all. I'm like, we'll get there. Just we need to do this first. And like the second session, same thing. He's like, when are we going to get to this? And it's like, you can't do a push-up yet. Let's at least get this stuff first. Okay, no. Keeps pushing, keep pushing. I said, you know what? I don't think we're the right place for you. He leaves. He goes to another place that just is looking for the dollar and says, oh yeah, we'll give you chains and boxes and all the funky stuff you're looking for. But the one thing he got that he wasn't looking for is when his kid got Tommy John at 14 and never threw a baseball again. That is where you need to be the adult in the room as the coach and say, look, that I need to look out what's best for your son or daughter. And that is not it. And we need to be able to have that kind of do no harm, right? I need to make sure I don't screw you up. Your arm or your knee or is way more important than whatever plastic trophy we're going to get at the end of this thing, right? And understand, is to not hurt these kids and to keep them safe, because if they don't do you any good, and my job in pro sports was to keep players on the field, right? Your greatest ability is your availability. And so everything you can do to keep them as resilient and on the field as possible, that is my primary job, first and foremost.
There's no doubt about it. And that's where, by the way, these excessive things like gassers at the end and those kind of things, you don't realize who you're pushing out from that standpoint. You know what I mean? Like you're literally pushing out the kid who is behind. I mean, that's just the truth. Like you're not doing a sprint and at the beginning and timing a flying 10, or you're just even having them run a 10 or 20-yard sprint just for them to get faster. And no matter what stage they're at, they could do that. You know what I mean? As fast as they can. When you're doing a gasser, you're literally saying, okay, we're gonna point out clearly who the weakest guy is. I always go back to college. Okay, to me, because I played in an era that this was prevalent, right? I played in this era, as Derek probably did too. I would guess. You still probably maybe towards the end of it, but I played in that era. I mean, I played during 3-a-days, which were 3-a-days were actually 3 practices with pads on in college. Like that's exactly what it was in the 90s, in the early 90s. And I just remember them screaming and yelling at a lineman of ours who was the most athletic, the most explosive, could do literally, I'm not kidding, he could do a backflip, okay, at 320 pounds. He ended up getting drafted to the NFL. Now, he did not make, he didn't make it like long term, but he was there for a few years. He was our best tackle. And the rest of the team would run 9,000 sprints because he was 9,000 yards behind everybody. Well, this was a super explosive, big, huge guy. And I just used to always think, I'm like, isn't this the guy who's the best lineman we have? I don't understand why we're trying to proceed to then torture him and make him hate the sport, which he kind of had a love-hate relationship with the sport. The guy was so talented. And I always thought that maybe that contributed to him never accomplishing all the things he could have accomplished, because he viewed running, lifting as a torturous act versus a development act. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of the things, like, and everyone's made this mistake. Even I've made this mistake, especially back in the day. Now I'm much more conscious of it over the last 10 to 15 years as a coach. But the doing some sort of form of athletic movement as punishment, I always say, like, what are you trying to teach? And we've all done it. People have done it in the essence of getting mad. You do it when they frame it. Let's say you drop a pass, give me 10 push-ups. So if you want to use that, I say you want to use that as some sort of learning tool. Frame it like this: either you catch the pass or you're going to get stronger. One of the two. Like if you want to use it some aspect, but don't use the athletic. And I still don't love it, obviously, but don't use the athletic uh, 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 movement versus the physical movement and use it as punishment. And then they say to themselves, "I hate doing push-ups." You know what I mean? If you are gonna do it, which you're still gonna have guys do it, because I don't like to think that I can change people overnight, but at least frame it differently. Frame it as you're gonna catch a pass, or you're gonna get stronger. Like so, and obviously you want them to catch passes and get stronger. So that's why it's a versus thing, which really doesn't work well in the long run. But that always, drives me crazy. Like I see it all the time, everywhere I go, right? And obviously, you're in the business of building athletes, so you're working away from that stuff. But I'm curious, like, how do you change these guys' mind frame? Like, what are examples you could use? You could say to a guy, hey, instead of saying when you drop a pass, your punishment is doing, like, what should you say to that coach that could get them to use this in a positive manner? Because I think the thing is, hey, you should teach them how to catch the pass. Teach them how to catch the pass properly. Show it to them and then rep it again, right? Okay. So I'm just curious your thoughts. I'm probably preaching to the choir, but go ahead.
Well, that's just not understanding adaptations. It's like, dude, the push-ups aren't going to help you become better pass catcher, right?
Right.
So understanding like, okay, well, if I need to fix that problem, that's not that's like if my sink is leaking, I'm going to go mow the lawn, right? So it doesn't, one has nothing to do with the other. There's a famous expression. Scientists said that the first principle is that you must not fool yourself. You are the easiest person to fool. Richard Feynman said that. And so the problem is we have something called survivorship bias. And you see this at the highest level when you see a big D1 program. What people don't understand, they have 100 kids on the roster. And if you're Alabama back in the day, or one of these schools, that if you lose your top running back, it doesn't matter. They have an assembly line that's just as good as that guy, right? And so because of that, what happens is it almost doesn't matter what you do, because you're going to still be good. And so what then happens, you think what they then do works, right? And if a big time receiver, if Odell did 10 push-ups every time he dropped the pass, you then assume that's what makes Odell, when he would have been that without the push-ups. And not understanding that, if you think, because, as an example, like I had the good fortune of going out and doing some workshops with the Navy SEALs, and people think like that training, that BUDS training, of that torturous training, is what develops, strong, more resilient, men and women. Not understanding, no, that training is to make you quit. They're trying to make you quit. They want to weed out the pack. There's a ceremonial thing that you do. If you're in Coronado, it gives you chills when you walk past it. There's a gold bell you have to ring and put your helmet there with your name on it when you quit, because they want everybody to know that you couldn't handle it. That's what it's for. It's not for some idiot freshman coach to make his kids carry a log over their head, which actually killed the kid. There's a story of a child who was killed by carrying a log over his head because his freshman coach wanted to make him tougher. Now, how do you sit down with a parent and explain your child is no longer here because I wanted to make them tougher doing a Navy SEAL drill, when that kid just wanted to meet girls? He wanted a cool t-shirt and meet girls. And now he's dead because some idiot thought he was going to make his kid, who couldn't even do a push-up, be a Navy SEAL, right? Because you think that's what makes the SEALs. No, that's survivorship bias. Right? Your bias. In perfect example, going back to our first conversation, Coach D. So we were talking about the team that him and I had crossed paths with. The year before I started working with them, they had 0 wins. The next year, they had 1 loss, and they went to the state championship. And the only other loss they had was the same team in the state championship. Mm-hmm. Do I think I made the 12-win swing? No. Right? Sometimes they had the right kids born in the right year that stayed in the school and kept playing, and they got better, and they got their asses kicked their junior year, and they figured it out, and they got better in their senior year. When I was in the NFL, we were awarded as the least injured team in the conference. Years later, we were ripped apart as the most injured team in the conference. Guess what was different about our program? Zero. We had more guys bought into our program. Sometimes bad things happen. You get a hand caught between helmets. You get something happens that is beyond your control. The program is exactly the same. So the people who were, wanted to know what we were doing and try to follow it one year, were bashing it another year, even though we were doing the exact same thing.
Makes a ton of sense.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about it. It's very interesting when you see so much of it. And I hate harping on this, but like so much of it done incorrectly. I'm sorry, and then you try to educate it, and you see coaches are starting to come along in that process, and it's getting better and better. Um, but you see coaches that do not resist it. I think your point, and I'd love for you to expand on this when you talked about like karate with like levels and stuff like that. And do you think that there should be levels with respect to USATF has done this with track, but levels of certifications within coaching that needs to be, whether within a sport or general preparation? Because I think there should be stuff like that because we do like the Rutgers Safety Clinic to protect kids, from predators and those kind of things, or something happening, handling situations properly, which is good. Obviously, those things are good, right? But they should have that for coaching because coaching has an impact in some cases way far beyond teachers with teaching class. And so there should be levels of certifications. And I don't even know that it's like an actual, like, it's not necessarily an X's and O's thing, but it's a best practices thing. What are your thoughts? You brought it up with the karate stuff, and so what are your thoughts with that?
On the skill side, that's tricky. I don't know how. I mean, I'll be honest. We had to do certain certifications, and it was literally, watch some videos which guys would be doing. They'd have run in the background while they're working, just click to the next one, click the next one, and like they had, yeah, whatever. I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do anyway. I'm just doing this so that the league doesn't give me shit. The one thing I would say in terms of strength and conditioning, that absolutely, you can't just pick whoever is the coach who likes to lift weights to be your strength and conditioning coach. I've said, point blank that high school, that especially at the high school level, strength and conditioning is legalized child abuse. And why do I say that? It's because how we view things. If your son or daughter came home and they said, I can't walk. Why? I'm so sore from something I did in history class. What did your history teacher make you? Well, they made me do these things and now I can't walk. Your history teacher would be on the front page of the paper and thrown in jail. But if you say it's something my football coach or my softball coach made me do, oh, good, they're a tough, hard-nosed coach. Why do we have a different standard? No, I don't have because I'm a strength and conditioning coach, I don't have the freedom to hurt your child. And it is my duty to not hurt, to keep your child from getting hurt. If I am inflicting injury on your kids, then that should be looked at no differently than anybody else who's inflicting injury on your kids. But we get this pass because it's strength and conditioning. Now, that's to say that they can't be a little bit sore or any of those things, but to have it to where we're going to have it where kids can't, they're puking and they can't walk and that's insanity that we get away with that.
No doubt about it. It's absolutely crazy that they get away with it. And it makes zero sense that it continues to happen. Now, like there's also a difference, right? Uh between progression and being able to you know, change what you're doing in order to make progress where you might be a little bit sore and not being able to walk. It's a very important thing for people to understand what the difference is, right? So, not being able to walk means you've done something that possibly could injure somebody, right? Being sore means you worked out and you have some level of soreness. Now, I think that the if you're able to minimize that in a way, I think that that's a good thing. And I talk about like this with sprint. We talk because we talk so much with the sprinting stuff, and we've had on every person from the football track consortium probably that there is available currently right now, right there.
Pretty
So,
much.
it yeah, we talk a lot about it. It's one of the things that we're trying to help coaches understand that like I'll use a recent example. Like I help I coached track for a long time, was track athlete, and now my son's the school team that he runs on, they run track, and they go and the place that we run track at is a big time program, high school wise, and we go to do our sprinting work, and one of the kids say to me, and obviously it's a kid helping to be with the younger kids. He's on the high school team. And he said, coach, just one quick thing. He said, to warm them up, you should have them jog a lap. And I said, we don't do that. And he said, what? I said, I understand that your coach might do that with you, with your sprinters. We're not doing that. So they understood. And after 2 days of seeing, like they understand now, okay, this guy's going through like a progression of development each stage, over the course of time. And so we did short sprints. We're doing some flying tens in the first day, not a ton of stuff, like, really giving them long breaks. And because it was like their first day, we really don't want to do a ton of reps. A lot of it was a lot of core development stuff. And some of the kids were sore just from that, like a little bit sore. And I said, see, I told the kids, I said, see, you're thinking from a mindset. This is just with like fifth through eighth graders. Okay. You're thinking from a mindset of what everybody else has said to you. I said, stop jogging back to the workout. This is not a conditioning workout. This is a speed workout. We're developing your speed. You're a sprinter. And so but I could just see how they've been cultured from all these years. This is youth kids, fifth through eighth grade. Okay. It's not like they're that old. They have been cultured to jog back. I'm like, stop jogging. Even my own son, first thing he wants to do is jog back. Right. And he knows the way we teach because he plays in other teams. Right. That, I coach him some things, but he plays in other teams where that's always the thing. Right. Now, it's one of these things where it's like, what are you trying to accomplish? If you're trying to move fast, you want to have some level of maximal rest. Okay, optimal rest, I'll use that word. Optimal rest in order to perform at a high level. Okay. And
Oh,
so but they've been cultured to
coach.
come right back and to go again and to just go again, just to go again, and no thought process in it. I'm like, are we running just to run, or and there's a part of it like I need to see you run before I can't just fix. I'm not going to fix it. I need to see you run before I even have an idea of there might be something that we have to fix, and some of it may be fixed on its own over time from the drills we do and some of the running. But the fact that they their thought process is I'm not working that hard. And so, what's funny? After 2 days, after the first day, they absolutely loved it. All the kids wanted to come do the sprinting. Okay. And some of it might be, wow, they're not working, quote unquote. But they're like, wow, I actually did work. And I think their parents were a lot surprised by it. But I'm amazed at how the culture of what they're doing, just fifth through eighth graders, they're so young and they're already in the mindset that they just have to keep just moving and moving to move and it without a purpose, and you kind of have to retool them. When kids come into your facility, you talked a little bit about with the one parent. Obviously, in the business, you don't need to waste your time with guys that don't buy into what you're doing. But is there like, do you feel like there's an education process that you have to go through with parents and athletes when they come to you that you're like, this is what we really need to do. Let's back it up. Is there a process from that standpoint for you?
Yeah, if I ever, whenever I took on a brand new athlete, I would sit down with the parent, with the child, and explain how this all works, and explain what the expectations are, and not lose sight of why we're actually doing this, and and understand that the goal of what my role is, the goal of training is not to get good at training. The goal of training is to get good, and understanding there's a difference between the two, that you're not you're not joining the sport of working out. You're working out to improve your sport and your health and your resiliency. And so a lot of people in my profession lose sight of that, and it's the ego of having record boards and all that kind of stuff without understanding why are we even doing this, right? And so understanding the purpose of where this fits in, and then also understanding that the purpose, or not necessarily the purpose, but the importance of that. This process is not come in and do this thing, whatever we're going to do with them, with speed, strength, whatever it may be, and then that's it. And then it's in this silo where this is a 24-hour day process, and that if you don't have your sleep in order, if you have high levels of stress, if you have poor nutrition, then we're wasting our time, right? We're planting seeds on concrete. It's never going to grow. And so understanding that this is a holistic process, and that my program's only as good as your recovery, and you're the one that controls that. And so getting them to understand that holistic aspect of it is the most important foundation you need to lay out. And that the workout itself, we can argue all day over which are, and I could, the other thing explained to him is say, I know what your goals are, I know exactly what you need, and I can write your program 50 different ways, and every single one of them will work. And so there is no one magic program that will do it.
And Coach, we know you got to run. We appreciate it.
Yep.
I mean, that was absolutely phenomenal. I can't thank you enough for taking the time and coming on and talking some shop with us, because for a guy that's been in it and sustained it in a market where guys come and go real fast, man, it's just awesome to get your knowledge. So we really appreciate you taking the time, Coach.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
No doubt.
All right. Have a great day, Eric.
All right. Thanks. You too, guys.
All right. Bye. Love to get him back on some more.
I think it's awesome, right? Guys that like he talked about his vision when he was, coming up, and he wanted everything under one roof, which, like he said, is kind of the staple now. But back then that totally was foreign, because guys didn't do everything in one stop shop. You know what I'm saying? So for him to have that idea at such, when it was really kind of coming to the forefront, right, is like really awesome. But I think his approach to the whole programming aspect, right? Like with it's 100% true. Like, you have to have levels to it. You can't just come in and expect guys to be able to do things that they don't have the fundamental strength or the knowledge base to kind of do it. Yet we're expecting them to go and do it all at a very, very high level. And when they don't, we want to call them out or criticize them or do something of that nature. Like, how can we expect guys to do something that we haven't even taught or any of that? It's crazy.
I think that absolutely is a difference maker. You're 100% right. It is amazing because you're so cultured in a way of doing things that is very, very, very difficult. And listen, I have to catch myself sometimes on things. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
because when you've learned a certain way of doing things, it makes a big, big difference um, to how you approach it. And to change that is very hard. So it's and it might have worked for somebody in the past, maybe, that kind of a thing too. And
Of course. And it's
you have to
familiar.
realize,
Guys want to go with like what they have, like what
no
they've
doubt,
always done.
no doubt, exactly. They want to go what they've always done, from that standpoint, and I think that makes a big difference. Is learning how to adapt the way you do things. I don't know. It's very interesting, and over time we have to figure out how to continue to evolve it so we don't get in a situation where what he talked about, which is like indirectly are actually doing harm
No
to a
doubt.
kid, and that's the crazy part,
We think a
that,
level of
that
success is how sore are you, you know?
right, right. It's when someone actually tells me they're sore from a workout, I'm like, okay, can you tell me how sore? What does the soreness feel like? Because
Right.
I'm like, okay,
You
like
kind of got to know.
they were not really ready for that level of soreness. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's hard to
Um,
gauge too, especially at the younger ages, because
Parents
you
are
don't know how
shocked
much
by
they're
that,
doing
by
it.
the way. They
Shocked
they
by
don't
what?
what they don't realize with speed in particular, or anything that you go hard on, they don't understand that the visual to them, hard work is exhaustion. And to a lot of coaches, that's the visual that they have been accustomed to. Um, I think that we have to figure out more ways to change that, but yet that's the visual they've become accustomed to, and what exhaustion looks like becomes what they think is the correct way to operate it. And I don't know. It's very, very interesting talking to guys like him because he has a great grasp of what the right way of doing it that way for a long time. I can only imagine the battles that he's had over the years on this stuff.
Oh my god, I can't even imagine because he's had it for a while. So I'm the back and forth between it with other like some people that are so just steady or headstrong in a certain way. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they're exactly, they're headstrong in a certain way. It's just like they don't um they don't grasp that, at all. They don't grasp that at all. It's really an incredible, incredible thing, that people don't look at it from that standpoint of grasp the proper way to do it, and they focus on things that have no effect, and then they wonder why guys are not faster many years down the line. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, I'm not, there's a genetic component to everything. So, to say that someone who is not fast is going to somehow be fast,
Right.
I don't know that that's fair. What is fair is that they can maximize whatever their genetic component is.
No
And
doubt.
that's the thing that has to be figured out. And that's the thing that a lot of guys are missing the boat on that. And I can't get it out of my head because I see it so often. And you're lucky you're in high school. You don't see it that much, right? Unless you're going to watch other sports, which you're probably not doing all the time. You know, it's sometimes better. I don't know. It's like, to me, it's like I always have to just be like, okay, it's not my responsibility. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, how many hats do
uh,
you want to wear? You know.
when I watch kids run around the track going slow, I'm just like, how is that supposed to make them better at whatever event you want them to run? Like, I just don't understand it. And then you watch my group, and everybody's like, "Wow!" It's like, I'm like, "There's no wow." Gigantic rests, okay, or I should say, optimal rests, and run fast. And by the way, we did, because if they didn't have a meet, I wouldn't even have did a little bit of this. I had to run like a kind of a flying 60 meters just because they have them in a meet. I was like, we have a meet? How do they have a meet? We only had 2 practices, you know?
Yeah, I
Like
mean, they're
these
not looking
things,
at it
I
like
mean,
that. Is this,
these
and
things
it's
are
what, middle
mind-blowing.
school? Yeah, well, no, but you got to understand too, most of it is not a viewpoint of let's go out and let's get better or let's perform at the top level. It's more of, hey, let's just go out, do something fun. You're on the whatever, and now go, right? Because I bet you the coach isn't qualified to do some of these things. Or if you asked some even
I
slightly
don't even
higher level questions in terms of training and development and all that, like they might not even know the events
No,
that they're freaking
that's
doing.
definitely not the case. I mean, I'm there to help them because of that aspect, but
Oh, you're helping
it
that
what
too?
yeah, I'm just doing the, sprinters 5th through 8th grade.
You're crazy,
So,
bro.
I have a huge group. I would say the sprinters, I would say 40 kids,
What grades?
5th through 8th. Most of the kids that I have are, boys wise, I think are most of them. I don't know if I have any 8th graders, but I think I have 5th, 6th, and 7th. And then girls, I definitely have some 8th graders. But
It's just
um,
crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
And then what do they
it's
have? One paid coach?
no, nobody's paid. Nobody's paid.
Even for the middle school
I'm
team,
just an
there's
assist. I'm
nothing.
an assistant. I'm an assistant. But I told them, I said, listen, you don't have to worry. Like, I'll take care of the sprints for you. If you want
Yeah,
to
but
do the
what about
long jump, I'll
like
take.
there's not like a head coach? That person doesn't get
Yeah,
paid
yeah.
for
The
that?
head coach has. So the head coach, I feel bad for him. The head coach has to take. I give them all the workouts.
What is he, like
They
a
do what
phys
they
ed
want.
teacher?
No, no, no. Track is mostly parents at St. Leo's because they can't get, some guy like basketball. You could always get a guy to run your basketball team from the
Wow.
outside. You know what I'm saying? Just
So
because
it's
basketball's so
literally just
popular,
somebody volunteering, like, so as if it was like if somebody didn't volunteer to coach it, they wouldn't have it?
they wouldn't have it. Yeah, they wouldn't have it.
Oh my god, that's brutal.
So that is why this guy volunteered. He's a great guy. I mean, a great guy. His
Holy
son is friends
shit.
with Troy. He's a good athlete. Great guy. So he volunteered, and then he was like, "Can you help me?" I said, "Yeah, I'm glad to help you. I just want to take this sprinter. Like, if this was 3 years ago, I could mentally handle really younger kids. I'm just not there anymore. So I just want to take like 5th through 8th grade as they're getting a little bit older, so I can coach them."
Well, the
And it was
school's what,
great.
K
So
through 8?
K through 8, yeah. So they got little tiny kids. So he takes, but I said, listen, I'll give you workout plans for the distance runners, the long sprinters, and the short sprinters. Okay, and then you can do what you want with it. Like I have it all mapped out, every single workout until the end of the season. Okay, they don't even have to think if they don't want to. You don't have to do all the drills. You could, but I have it staged out so it's a maximum 45-minute practice. It's a 45-minute practice. Each phase has a few minutes. Even though I have the workouts, I still do start, even though my workout doesn't have starts at the end. I still do some starts just to make sure they have them, the starts ready to go. But
Yeah.
so I have to adapt a little bit, uh, but
And do you go,
you
are the
know,
meets against public schools or just all private schools, like when you have meets?
it's the Catholic conference.
Oh, okay. So like so all the private schools have it and then just kind of go with it. Cool. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's where it's run by, actually. The group that runs it is Shore AC. You ever heard of them? The track
No,
organization.
no.
I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but yeah, Shore AC runs it. Um,
It's cool.
and they run the meets, I should say. Um, but yeah, it's good. So I mean, it's like I'm like, I'm gonna make it so you guys, if you don't know what to do on a day, you have it in front of you. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah, you got
But
to
I
make it
feel bad.
easy. Because
They
I'm
have
just saying,
the
those
little
guys
kids.
don't know anything about that.
Yeah, the little guys have. He must have 65 kids. So like that's
Oh,
got to
yeah,
be
there's
very
no doubt.
impressed.
Because everybody's like, look, it's spring. It's probably like, do they have any other spring sports at the school? Probably not. Like, they don't have a baseball team,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Because they have baseball. Baseball tryouts are just finished, so they have that um part, which
So
which is
funny.
good. Yeah, listen, let me tell you something. Like the Catholic schools, I mean, I'm very impressed with the ability to have focused stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no doubt. Because most middle schools don't have this stuff.
No, they
And it's
don't.
for those
They don't.
reasons of like,
They
nobody's
might
going to
have it
do
at
it unless
7th
you
and
pay
8th
them.
grade.
Well,
They might have
if
it
they
at
do, that's what it is. It's only 7th and 8th grade. But like
I mean,
spring
we have track with
sports,
the
like
little
that
kids,
stuff's
so you
different.
could really become a great, uh, if you're really like these kids can run from the time they're in kindergarten.
Yeah. No doubt. No. I get it. I think it's awesome. Like I
It's
said,
it's
like you
pretty it's
you
pretty
kind of wish
amazing.
more schools would kind of do it, but just with the way things are now, dude, like it's just, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy unless you have like a school that's really kind of like bought into that, right? And they're like, hey, our extracurriculars are just as important as our academics, like, because most people it comes down to like budgeting or just money, or what I said, like, people that want to do it, right? Like, hey, I'm not going to do that unless I get something else to stay after school, so that's awesome that they actually have it. And then they have a whole other group that, or like other teams that they get to go against. That's what's cool about the private school. You can make that stuff kind of work. Whereas public, it's either there or it's not,
Yep. No, there's no doubt about it.
So
It's
cool.
either
Tomorrow should be cool. We're 10 a.m. with Coach Jay Accorsi, who's a longtime head coach at Rowan, retired, and now is starting Salem Community College JUCO football down in South Jersey. So it'll be good to talk to him a little bit about getting a JUCO program off the ground. And the Salem Community Mighty Oaks will be a football team, JUCO, for the 20, I believe that this will be their first season. They're going to start this season. I don't even know if they're, kind of giving a year layoff of what it is. I think they're literally going to dial it up this year and start already. So he's been pounding the pavement at every clinic that I've been at. He's been at kind of either looking for players or just getting the program out with some notoriety. And, obviously that JUCO world, especially here in the Northeast, is a very interesting one. There's not many of them, especially now with Lackawanna making the jump to NCAA, right? So that kind of one powerhouse JUCO program that was here in the Northeast is no longer. So I'm sure he will, benefit from that a little bit, but also, I think the unfamiliarity with the JUCO world for a lot of our viewers. I know we've had a couple guys on from whether it be Mississippi or wherever. The JUCO world is one that's very different. Right. And in today's world with transfer portal and guys playing more years, and is it like, does the eligibility run out or whatever? Does it count? Does it not count? It'll be good to kind of talk to somebody who's literally in it and have some of those conversations. I mean, and on top of it being, a coach he was the head coach at Rowan for, numerous years. So it's not like he don't know what he's doing. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, he was great. He's been around forever.
No doubt. He recruited me, for Christ's sakes.
Oh, did he?
Oh yeah, I made a visit. I didn't want to wear brown and yellow.
That's
color scheme played a role in some of my
color
decisions.
scheme is a weird color scheme in my opinion, but
I am extremely excited though for our guest on Monday.
I'm sure today's uniforms they make it like look cool though.
Well, you also have to understand,
is that the same colors as Lehigh? Is that what Lehigh's colors is too?
But I don't know if Lehigh stresses the yellow like Rowan does. You know what I'm saying?
Got it.
Or whatever they want to call it. It's the Steelers with brown instead of black.
Got it.
You see, now look, it's funny too, because like when we talk about like your high school and my high school, by definition, are the same colors, right? Like, but you're navy blue and an actual gold, whereas we were royal blue and a yellowish, but we called it gold, right? So they're the same colors, but they are so different in terms of like when you actually look at it. And I think like the thing that Butler was, that yellow was like color 2, but we always stressed white over that. But yet our helmets were that. So we always had an awkward like helmet. Like when you rolled up, it was like, oh, that's a Butler helmet, because it was that yellow that really like nobody had that color scheme.
Butler's is very distinctive.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the old Hofstra, right? I think maybe like San Jose State rolls with those color combos. I mean, shit, look at where I'm at now. Like, my colors now are freaking A, dude. Like Marshall, right? Maybe like the Eagles when they wear that green, that Kelly green. Like, it's an awkward color scheme. But
Yeah.
Monday, dude, I'm juiced because I just talked to him yesterday. We booked it today. Long time high level offensive coordinator, Coach Robert Spence, is gonna come on. I sent you some stuff on him. He's been, dude. I mean,
Hudson Catholic? No.
no, I know we're talking college level. Like he, like when he was the OC at Clemson, Dabo was his receivers coach.
Oh yeah.
So, look, you could name Toledo. Hofstra is kind of real, like, you know, he was at Hofstra for a long time as the OC. He's a run and shoot guy, right? Like, so I knew, like, I'm excited to get another run and shoot guy. He just left. He's been the OC at Georgetown for the last couple years. He recently stepped down. They're kind of making, they're going, both are like decided to just kind of go in different directions. He's been at Tennessee, Chattanooga. I mean, look, you name it, he's probably been there. He's one of those guys. He started coaching in high school back in the late 80s, right? And then he's been at Maryland, La Tech, Toledo, Clemson, Syracuse, Temple, Rutgers for a year. Say like he's kind of been a lot of places. Obviously most recently Georgetown, but I'm excited to talk to him. He's currently doing some, he's a big QB guy, right? So he's working with QBs. He's also going around and kind of teaching guys to run and shoot. So he's got a little bit of whatever we want to call those guys nowadays, for what he's looking to get
they
into.
Run their like clinic things.
Like he'll go to the school and he'll spend 3 days and he'll implement it and he'll kind of watch and tweak and critique and do whatever he's got to do, which is awesome. One, I'm excited because he's, freaking run and shoot guy. And I love that shit, right? Obviously. And two, because he's been in it for so long and been at so many programs in high level, you know what I mean? Like to really talk about being an offensive coordinator at some of the highest levels, like it'll be really awesome to talk to him. He's got that nice Southern accent, dude. It's pretty cool. I think he developed that because he's a New York guy, but
that's funny, actually. That's really funny. Dude, it's I think we have some really good guests on, dude. These guys are
dude, we're crushing it.
They're insightful.
Yep.
They all have a different take. I mean,
well, that's the appeal. Is it's not the same old of just blah 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 blah. Like every guy we talk to has something different to bring to the conversation, and that's what's awesome about it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just it's just, to me, that's the appeal to it. I mean, next week, if you look at you can look at it. Like we're gonna have OC run and shoot guy on Monday. We're going to have private school Pennsylvania guy on Tuesday, where every kid in the school plays another sport. You can't get into the school unless you're going to play a second sport. Then we have a strength and conditioning guy on Wednesday, and then we have the head coach from Dickinson University on Thursday. So, you know what I mean? Like we're kind of running the gamut and talking to guys on different levels, different approaches, different viewpoints, like all that stuff. Like it's just, dude, it's awesome.
It's phenomenal. It really is phenomenal. It's an absolute good. Like I have to look at the numbers on the site because it's so. I'm curious if it's. I didn't look. I haven't looked recently.
I've had to start putting it was all good for a while, like just putting the names of the guys that are coming on, but now I have to literally put like what they are, like head coach, what sport, right? Because we're talking to guys like whether it be track guys, and I want to talk to you too because I know you enjoyed Dr. Dylan that we had on last week, to maybe get him to do like a monthly since he has such of like that academic background to it.
Yeah.
Right.
He'd be
Like
great.
to get him as a
Monthly,
monthly spot, because those topics, just like George, like just like when we had, Georgia on, or there's a different topic within their expertise that we could discuss and talk about every time moving forward,
hands down, 100%.
You know what I mean? Because like half the time we know that these guys have 2 or 3 other things that are like really awesome, but like the conversation is so good with what we're talking about. Like, you know what I mean? Like you need almost to like break it up into different shows. Otherwise we'd go for like 4 hours.
He would be great because he has like a lot of studies. Like,
dude, it's awesome. That he always like, he always goes back to like some type of, like research paper or academic backing or study that was done in whatever. And he always like, cites it or whatever. To see guys like that interact with other guys that we've had on. Like I saw him, like Dr. Dillon was going at it with Zach Goodman, so we've had both guys on and they're kind of going back and forth on their takes, so I'm also looking at maybe we should start to set up some of those where we kind of have 2 of those guys on that can go back and forth with it. You know what I mean? Like almost like a little, almost like a mini round table where guys can kind of fire it out and talk about back and forth, not opposing viewpoints, but just like, where they stress one thing over another.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good idea. That would be really good. Yeah, like a debate, kind of like almost like
just like a back and forth of like, well, maybe you need to look at this, or maybe you should look at that. That's what was great about Eric was, he was one way from the jump, and then, has transitioned, did tweaked, and changed some certain things, but still kind of stayed as himself. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of a trend with a lot of these guys, especially, and the debate of like, do you just want guys to click on the video and get clients, or do you like actually want to impact and like really do what's kind of right? I think a lot of guys kind of battle with that because, you're always the first to say like, hey man, you have to have a business where you can make it work. You know what I mean? Like you have to be bringing in something, but at the same time, you kind of want to keep it, you know what I mean? Like the main thing. So
should be good. All right, good stuff. I'm working on the schedule.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting messages. When's the schedule coming out? I'm like, dude, it comes out Thursday.
I might have to see if I can get one, maybe 1 hour to 9 o'clock from the guy, just to be safe.
Like last game would start at 9 p.m.
Well, I'm finishing it up now. Either that or I'm gonna have to go an hour earlier, 11. So
okay. I don't think that would be a problem.
No, I don't think that would be.
I thought you couldn't start till 12 because of that was what it was.
No,
you didn't have a field available. Oh, you're just starting at 12 to start at 12?
I'll reach out. I'll reach out. I'm just, as soon as I finish the schedule, then I can have a good idea of how to do it. Like it's I don't know. It's a little slightly dicey, but I think I've almost got it. It's like a puzzle.
Yeah.
It's a puzzle, you know what I mean? Like I bet you we're gonna need an hour one way or the other. I just gotta figure out where to put that, but I'm trying to figure out how I can maximize this puzzle on it, but we'll figure it out, no doubt. All right, man. Great episode. A really good one. And then tomorrow Rob Stunts, that'll be great. And then
yeah, Coach Accorsi's the man. He looks like Santa too. I love it.
And Coach Accorsi, yeah, Coach
his beard his white beard is literally down here. Like,
wow.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Tired,
I mean, I guess I get to be the head listen, and he said it every time I've heard him speak since then. Like, hey, I thought I'd be okay, but I didn't even last a year out of the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's like, I retired and said I was good, but you know what? I am just not good. He's like, I got a lot of juice left in the tank, and to do something like this where, I can take something from the ground and literally build it in terms of like, this place has never had any football whatsoever. Like, he's like, I'm creating a helmet, right? Like, or I have to find a practice field, or you know what I mean? Like, it's literally from the ground up program wise, which is pretty cool. Not a perspective we can get from anybody else. So
no doubt.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right. You got it, bro. Great job.